Highest levels in years.
Yeah.
I was just hearing. How you feeling? All right? Better?
Oh, oh, you're talking about in regards to being physically sick? Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, I had some childhood friends visiting from Cleveland, so I was hanging out with them yesterday.
Cool.
Uh,
Cool.
I don't know. It's
So
interesting
you're.
seeing people like 20 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Come to think, I haven't spent much time with any much of any high school friends or anything. So I didn't have a whole lot to begin with from high school. So not many to see 20 years later, but there are probably a few I could see, and I don't know. Be nice to catch up, I suppose.
Uh, and the first thing they wanted to do outside of pregame and sip on something, it's the titty bar. So yeah, I was out there last night.
Oh, so you're
Uh,
burning the midnight oil, as my dad would say.
mm, I still think I'm pretty disciplined, but yeah, I don't know. There's one down the street from me, but I don't know. It's too Latin. I don't like their music.
I don't think there's one of those. I think the Twin Cities would be the closest one. There used to be one just south of where I live, and like an hour away or so, and
The
that
nearest
closed up with
the
COVID.
nearest strip club is an hour away. I find it hard
It's
to
like
believe.
2 hours now. It used to be not that I've been to one like two three times maybe total across. Once when I was 18, once for a bachelor party. Actually, maybe it's only two times then. But
I
anyways, yeah,
used
it used to be an hour away, but that one closed up because of COVID. So now it's like 2 hours away. It's in the Twin Cities,
I used
probably.
to I used to go to the strip club after every test that I would have to take in college, every midterm, every lab that I have to do in physics. It was it was how I would reward myself for something very stressful in any of my courses at the university. So the interesting thing is they knew I was broke because I was a starving college student. So like they didn't really bother me for lap dances or anything. But that was, some people go to the local neighborhood bar. I would go to the strip club and just try to disconnect. So,
Yeah, whatever you got to do. So
uh, speaking of strip clubs, how's the how's your job doing?
it's been better. Um, man, just kind of been a few rough weeks of like feeling like we're not accomplishing things and stuff like that. And I don't know. I'm kind of getting more to the point where it's like if I'm not progressing on something, I'm just not it. I'm like not interested in doing it anymore. So I'm kind of switched to the
Yeah,
point of requesting to just being like, you know what? I'm just gonna push ahead with what I want to do and hope that it whatever progress I make shows, and nobody has any problems with it. So if that makes any
yeah.
sense at all.
Well, it makes perfect sense. I think a lot of people are somewhat checking out.
No, I mean like I still like I mean I like the company as a whole, and I like like the people that we help. It's just the like we have I think we just have like a weird team structure with too many cooks type of thing because we have like you ever been on a team that
Yes.
has three product owners at the same time that
Uh,
co-manage the same backlog?
no, they're product owner per team,
Yeah, ours
but
has
no,
3.
no. Why?
I don't know. We've got 3.
How many
There's
architects
well, that's another thing I like about this company too. Is our architecture team is we've got maybe like 4 or 5, maybe,
on the same
but they
project?
don't they don't work on they don't work on our on projects like development team projects. They operate in the way that I like truly believe that architecture should, which is they're like we're consultants. If you need us for hard problems, reach out, and we're gonna otherwise try to help maintain patterns and best practices and focus on bigger picture stuff that we might reach out to you for information occasionally, but like I
So
you know
enterprise and solution architects
sort of, yeah. I don't know. I think of so like the way I've always thought architecture teams should work is very similar to like well, to a certain extent anyways, um, is that they should work a bit like database administrators do or database architects would do that also do administration, where it's like it's a team, it's a cross-cutting thing, and you reach out to them because you as a developer know that you don't know everything about everything, and that they're just highly
um,
specialized in helping with particular problems. So
yeah, that's very contrary to my approach.
because
Like,
I've never liked the ivory tower top down, I design you develop type thing. um
yeah, that's me.
yeah, no, I
So something I need to work on is in general, my belief system is in general across shops. I believe that the majority of developers don't have the skill set to architect a sustainable system for the expected lifetime of a platform to generate revenue or to continuously uh, help like solve problems. So I don't trust developers to build a system that's supposed to withstand the next 10 years with with minimal maintenance or disruption, right? I expect that when an area of volatility occurs, such as a a third party library being deprecated or the platform deciding that they need to change who their third party is due to I don't know some contract or parting ways with the partner. I don't trust developers to have that foresight to engineer a platform to accommodate any type of change with things that could possibly and also likely to change within the next 10 years. So what I do is I do my little domain driven design thingy and I identify areas that are likely to change within the next 10 years and then I'll build out that architectural like foundation, the architectural runway. And then I'm like, all right, developers, you can start appending, business features on top of it. 'Cause I just don't see that skill set out there for business app enterprise developers. I don't see it. I'm not saying that there's not like unicorns out there.
yeah, I think it depends on the kind of people you're hiring and stuff, because there is
Enterprise
definitely
developers, dark matter developers.
yeah, well, I don't think of dark matter like there's a lot of good dark matter developers out there. I just don't think that there's definitely developers who don't have the capability to do like think about systems design and stuff like that. um, there's plenty who do. And like what I hate is that I don't really want to become an architect, and I'm like I want the freedom to be able to do design and get into those types of things because like I like that. I like architecture. I don't want to become an architect in the way that most companies do. In fact, I don't ever want to work in an organization again that has top-down architectural design. Like
Uh,
stewardship at like an enterprise level and helping teams with understand their boundaries and consult, but within like the domain or domains that that I'm responsible for, like I'm the architect now. So
Yeah, I like to be
yeah,
hands on. I like to. They're like, Scott, you shouldn't be writing code. I'm like, damn that. Like if I don't write code, things aren't going to get done the way that I think they should be. You just
yeah,
have a whole bunch of I don't. I gotta watch how I say things. Yeah, like I don't trust. I don't trust people. I don't trust people in my private life. I don't trust people in my professional life. I don't trust people. Like I don't trust people to do things the way that I envision them to do it. So
yeah,
I roll up my sleeves and I try to brute force the way that I think things should be.
yeah. I used to be more in that camp of like wanting things to be the way that I envisioned them, and then I realized that like that really means that like you're never gonna get have like teams that work around you very well. So it's something where like as long as the like to me as long as the big boxes are where they should be and the like code is otherwise structurally fine, it's like I don't sweat the small stuff anymore at all like that. It's like yeah, it's just you know okay,
No.
you didn't return a maybe type here even though that's clearly a thing. That's okay. Like whatever. I'm not gonna argue. You threw an exception
Well,
here.
I'm not going to die on the hill for
Yeah.
that. But it's the thousand paper cuts that takes its toll, and I think people forget that. They think that it's like, you know, one or two or three like issues that kill a project. And my belief is no, it's the little things that compound that in my experience just keep pushing the deadline back and back and back that keep creating overhead and countless conversations and meetings and coordination back. You know what I've learned is it's not it's not just about engineering. It's about how you organize people to accomplish an objective. That is the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest killer, the biggest reason for why projects are at risk.
Yeah. Yeah,
They have to write
absolutely.
more books about this because people that even manage projects, I'm still bewildered that the term Conway's Law is like alien to them,
Yeah, no, I
right?
I,
And
I agree with you 100%. That's kind of where I'm at right now is that like I'm feeling the frustration of that like our the teams that I'm on like we just have too broad of a focus, and so what happens is we're literally constantly doing context switching like between a bunch of stuff. So any bigger project, it's like by the time we are done contact, like we might do like a spike and we're ready to go, but then we have all these other little things that pop up over in this context. And so we switch to that for a little while. And then we come back and we're like, well, where were we at with this again? Okay, let's do another spike. And then it's like, oh, but now we got to do now this is a new priority. So let's go do I'm just done with it, man. I'm just like I'm not gonna do it anymore.
they
Just
they need to write more books on it.
yeah.
Like managing the development effort. How do you organize people? Do you really add three product owners to a project?
No.
Do you really have like nine architects involved with a project that's under, I would say, $30 million, right?
Yeah.
Under $10 million.
What's the problem too for me is like on the team that I'm on, I can see two very distinct buckets of work. Like we have two contexts that are very well like you could put a line and you can take almost every ticket on our backlog evenly and plop it into these two buckets. And the overall intent, focus, goal of the people using the system, like the boundaries that we talk to are very slim. It's like in here, all of these things work together to do this. And in this bucket, all of these things kind of work together to do this. Or there's some edge stuff there that might be a little bit, um, like you could spin up another team to handle it. But it, regardless, like there are two very distinct buckets of work, and it's like can't. And I just don't get, like, can't we just split and just do these two and have two focused teams so that this team can really focus on getting this moving forward, and
Yeah,
this team can
ownership.
focus on this, and we have like it's really, it's a cohesion thing, right? Like your team should have a cohesive purpose or like mission or like area, and it doesn't mean you have to have like they focus on one service, but it's like you have like a whole bunch of potential stuff underneath an umbrella.
Yeah. Thanks for therapy session.
Yeah, no, I need it. I don't know. I've some maybe switched to my head the last couple of days where I'm just kind of now like, no, I'm just gonna pursue that, and I'm gonna I think what I'm gonna do is get to the point where I just say, no, I'm just working on this stuff, and that's what I'm doing. I'm leading this project in this area, and I will work on these things, but I'm not working on any of these things because like I want to focus and I want to accomplish something before the end of the year, so this year isn't like completely gut wasted for producing things. So
Have you ever heard the term like I drink to make people more interesting? Have you ever heard that before?
yeah.
Uh, like I'm obsessing in my mind over F sharp. I'm like, man, I would enjoy this next this next task that's been assigned to me so much if I could just write this in F sharp. I would be so engaged. I would probably work over the weekend just because it's a interesting problem to write in F sharp, right? And
Hmm.
like, oh no, I guess even I'm falling prey to obsessing over a technology instead of just the overall like business objective. But I don't know. I think sometimes I think a language is different from like a framework or a library. Right? But
Yeah, there's elegance
I'm
to
just so much
things.
more motivated to do things with a language that I feel like is just less overhead to get things done. That I'm starting to stress myself out over it within the last 24 hours because I really want to just do it and then say sorry later, which I've
Yeah,
done
it is.
before.
It is easier to ask for permission or forgiveness than permission. So, um, but yeah, I don't know. I get, I can see that. I mean, there's reasons why people think languages are elegant or beautiful, and I don't, you know, wanting to be around that.
Well,
Yeah.
it just motivates me. Like I look at C sharp as like Coleco, and I look at like F sharp as like PlayStation 4, right? Not PlayStation 5, but PlayStation 4. Like it's just it has more utility to it, I think.
Yeah, every time that C sharp adds new features to make things slimmer, I see how bad it used to be. Like it's like, oh, like I didn't realize how bad this was, but now that I have this, like you get rid of that top level nested
Yo, the
um,
namespace with the colon.
namespace thing. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I just learned about that feature like maybe 4 or 5 months ago because I called it out and the code review was like, "That's not right." They're like, "No, it is right." I'm like, "Oh, you could do that? Oh, oh."
yeah, they keep finding ways to make the imprint like smaller. I'm waiting
Curse.
for them to take. I'm still waiting for them to allow you to do like I gotta look up why this is, but why can't we do classes construction the same way as records? And maybe it's because they're like, well, why don't you just use records? But there are cases where you don't really want object like to have like a comparator and all that. Yeah, I don't know. I just like the how records are so much cleaner to declare now than classes are. So, but
Oh no, I think you wrote some examples in C sharp. But believe it or not, when I'm in C sharp, I'm still writing Poco classes.
yeah,
I mean, in
Yeah.
F sharp, I'm hardwired to write records, obviously, but in C sharp,
Well,
I don't
records
know.
are
I
just
have
Cocos.
Well, no, I
I
mean
mean,
the syntax is different, right? It's terser syntax when you declare a record in C sharp. I think than if you were to declare a class in C sharp. But my mind hasn't really been motivated to like force that muscle memory of declaring records instead of classes
well,
in
it's
that
nice
language.
because like all the properties are read only by default, so are immutable by default, which is really good because then you don't have to
Delete all
define
the
all this.
setters,
Yeah.
which is
um,
another pet peeve in code reviews. I'm like, hey, do we plan on mutating these? No. Can we remove them? No, we may need this. I just asked you, do we plan on mutating? You say no.
yeah. How do you handle in C sharp? Because this is something that I've struggled with. So because I haven't found like a good read only collection. I've returned enumerables in places, but then that can cause. Well, as a property, never mind. It doesn't matter. Maybe I'm overthinking this.
I'll return the
Yeah,
IEnumerable.
enumerable. Yeah, I guess as a property, it doesn't matter because you're generally not constructing it. There is a like good warning to not iterate over enumerables like more
Hey,
than once.
Gambler.
But um, yeah, I feel like there's something that I want that's not an IEnumerable. That's just like here's something that is an IEnumerable, but it's like here's a collection you can look at, but
Well,
I don't know.
there's a read-only collection.
Yeah, yeah.
I've never used it.
Hmm. But yeah,
Uh,
I've always just been kind of like that's something that I'm always kind of just frustrates me is trying to figure out between using a list array or an IEnumerable, like because it's like I don't need this person to mutate. I don't want them to mutate this, but I don't know.
so I
People
mean,
return lists all over the place. It's
I know, I'll call it out in pull requests. I'm I don't know if you know, but I have OCD, and so like people expect a rubber stamp for a pull request, and I'll leave like 50 feedback items.
do you at least flag them as nits so they know which ones that they need to care about?
Do I flag
Actually,
them as what?
nit, nit. You ever
Nah,
see that convention?
nah.
So like there's a whole actually there's like a whole convention around stuff you could flag things in and pull requests. But NIT is one that like I'm nitpicking. This is something I'd rather you do or whatever, but technically I'm not gonna hold up a PR or the feature just because you like decide you don't want to do it. So fix it or don't. I don't really care. I'll approve it anyways. Versus
Well,
stuff like that's really important. Like
yeah.
you should do this.
So an example of that, which I really didn't want to expend energy on or any more energy on, are interfaces that expose like find operations that use a integer um, as the ID type. And I'm like, well, you're writing an interface. That interface, by definition, is an abstraction. But then you're leaking the implementation details of whatever data store by saying, no, we need we expect that when you want to find something that you have to provide an integer. And I'm like, what? The, the, it would be more consistent if we just expose a string, because with a string, I mean, that find operation could be a GUID, that find operation could be an integer, that find operation can be JSON for whatever reason. Like, why are we saying no? This is the interface, it's abstract, but you have to provide an integer. Like the whole point of an interface is, well, I won't say the whole point, but a major like benefit or advantage is code reuse. All right, but it's like you're writing this interface for a specific like client. Why are we doing this? And I get pushback, and I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah,
Fine.
that's not a hill I would even think to die on, or even think about. Like I know I get what you're saying. I don't like the idea of passing strings either because they can literally be anything, and it's
That's
like
the whole point
yeah.
for an interface.
Well, why isn't just everything a string then? It's like you could pass JSON here. You could
O-
do
o-
anything.
Okay,
It's you're trying
so
to find some sort of type requirements
it,
around it.
the
Yeah.
way that you may save something on a web application can be completely different how you save it on a mobile app, right? Like if one of the tenets of maintainable code is to encourage code reuse and not try to constrain it to a specific platform, then like why are we exposing that the way that we save data is an integer if that's not the only way to pull a record from a data store? Like why not make it abstract so
But
it's up
strings aren't abstract though.
I would argue they are.
No, I mean,
You could pass one as a string. You could pass a GUID as a string.
yeah. So why don't you also then just be like get take that a step further though and go, well, this is primitive fixation too, and we shouldn't use primitive fixation. We should have a an abstract record type that represents this, and then a concrete and enumerate all the concrete options that are then validated to be correct in form. Like
Well, I would say
in
that
which case
that's
you just end up down to an integer anyways.
well, I would say that that's just more overhead than I think is necessary, right? I don't think there's much return on investment that way. But when you create an interface, the two things that I could think of that would motivate someone to write an interface is for it to be testable and for it to be reusable. When you say the only way that I could find this item in some data store that I shouldn't know the implementation details are of is passing an integer, you're 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 forcing a constraint that's not
Yeah.
necessary.
Well, yeah, but that's because 99% of interfaces we create are for the latter reason or the former reason, not the latter reason. People aren't generally designing interfaces as like, here's an abstraction that I really want to have as a reusable thing. Like, rarely that's the case. It's almost always for dependency injection for testability.
Which is why, as an architect, I don't trust developers to think about long-term impacts of code design.
But that's the thing is like to do the way that people want to do unit testing or whatever, or think that we should use unit testing, which I don't agree with. I don't think we should test anything that's not over the wire, um, unless it's a complex algorithm you're trying to build out, and it's a little different. Um, but like that's just like how it's like constructed. I mean, it like you could take out the interfaces in most things, and you'd be in most projects you could probably eliminate most of the interfaces and be just fine. Like you might use them for tagging, like type safety stuff, but that's another purpose for interfaces is literally just for tagging or for that. It's not like
What do you mean
if it's
tagging?
really an abstraction, it should be like a not a contract. It should be a an abstract class, right?
What do you mean tagging?
Tagging like have you never had like interface empty interface tagging where you're trying to tag some item as a class, like a particular type, but it has no members or anything, no contractual stuff. An empty interface can be
Yeah,
used as a tag. Yeah,
yeah. I've used that, and it's almost always been
it's for reflection mostly.
uh. So in my case, it's always been for me to attempt to like iterate on a on the collection or something. Like I need this set of data to I need to iterate over it, and there's other sets of data that I also need to iterate over it, and it'll just be convenient if I could constrain it to this type of interface instead of writing way more code. All right.
But couldn't you just? So you're talking about you've got two distinct sets of data you want in the same collection to iterate over.
Yes.
So why don't you just make the class an object? I mean, you can iterate over anything. Then same
All
question as
all
the string.
classes are object. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is why don't you just make the collection of objects and not provide a common abstraction, tagged abstraction?
By default, they're all objects. I don't
Yeah,
have
but
to. I don't have to make them an object.
if iterating it over, you don't need to create an interface for that. You can just throw it into a list of objects and
Well,
iterate over an enumerable of objects.
what, what happens is I want to pass two different types or two different classes. I want to have the ability to pass them as an argument. Hence, they serve as a parameter on a method signature. And then within that particular method, I want to be able to not really. I don't do for each loops because I'm cool, right? I do like a map filter reduce or a select aggregate
Hmm.
and where, right? I want to be able to do that across, you know, two different classes that they're of a different type, but within the method, I want to be able to iterate over either one of them. And so I just, like you said, I didn't know that the term was tag. I just create a blank interface and have with no methods, no properties, just so I could be able to pass those methods. I mean, pass those classes into a method,
Yeah,
pass those structures into a method.
but you could just pass them as objects. Who cares what they are? Now this goes back to the whole like integer, like
Well,
string thing. It's like if you, it's the same thing in my mind. It's like
if you pass it as an object, like that's a solution, but I would argue that you're not. An object doesn't tell you what the role of. It doesn't tell you what you're trying to accomplish. I would argue an interface does.
yeah,
I,
but a string doesn't either. Back to the original thing. Like
a
an
string,
integer doesn't either. A string doesn't either. It's a primitive
well,
fixation, right?
a, a integer says that in order to access this information, even though I'm an interface, your implementation detail must have a an ID of an integer and nothing else. It can't be a GUID, it can't be a string, but we are an abstraction, but this has to be an integer. Like that to me that's counterintuitive and it's you don't need to leak whenever you do that, you you basically wrote the interface afterwards.
But then strings aren't a good thing to do either. Then you
It's
should
a
do a
better
generic.
thing.
No, it's not. It's the same thing. It's like you can't do a GUID because you would need to know like on the other side to convert it to a GUID. And now people that are passing it in, they don't know what's the actual need here. If you're gonna be nitpicky like that to do integer, just use generics. Then it should just be a generic T where T is the ID type. Then they can pass GUID string int depending on what their particular context is for that reusable interface.
I agree with that. That's a better solution.
Yeah.
You're so smart. I never considered that.
No, but you talk like in circles, and what's good is like not you. I mean, everyone does. Like it's like this is why it's good to like talk with other developers because I think like you people bring up things that I don't think about, and then I bring up things, and then we keep circling until we find a like, oh yeah, this would be a better solution.
Yeah.
Like, no ints are good, no strings are good, no ints are good, no strings are good. Why are we arguing? Why don't we just use generics and we can pick? Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. So did I sent you that thing on Twitter a few like a week or two ago. So remember like you were I think we had a conversation about aliasing, and it just had never dawned on me to use the using something to alias types, right?
Yeah,
In C
I use
sharp.
it all the time.
Yeah. But I think you were saying like the problem is that you have to like fully qualify everything.
Well, in your namespace declaration when you want to import it, yeah.
But what I was saying with that one is, I think if you put it inside the namespace, you don't have to do that.
Okay, I didn't
Is
know
what
that.
I Yeah, I didn't know that either. And then I think I so let me make sure that I understand.
Because I do it a lot with like generics. I do a type alias, especially generics that rely on I enumerable. Like I don't know, it's just very convenient. Or when you have collisions, like I don't know, it's just very convenient.
Yeah. No, I for collision, I've always used it for collisions, but I never thought to use it as an alias. And I was playing with something this last week, and I was like, oh, you know what? Why don't I just alias this rather than having to, like, define out all of this crap? Sure. 1 second. Share screen. Screen 2. All right, I'm sharing screen here quick. And watch this, it won't work this time. Okay, so you've got this, and what you're saying is like you would go like something like this, like I don't know, inside equals. Mm,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm gonna fix it. What's wrong with this? The non-generic type in enumerable cannot be used with type arguments. Generic. There, now will it accept int? Yeah. So what we're saying is like this is not doable, right?
That's been my experience, yes.
Look at that.
Ta-da! That's cool. I feel like,
Global namespace, I don't know what enumerable is.
oh,
In
the
namespace, I know what enumerable is.
is that a bug though?
I don't think so.
I mean, but why your namespace sandbox? Like, why is it okay in there and not outside of it? Like,
I
does
don't know.
your namespace sandbox when you decompile automatically generate imports under it for system? I mean, that has to be, or system like I think
So
that's a
yeah, I guess I probably have global implicit usings on. Let's get rid of that. So now this should blow up because I don't have. But here's your old way using system collections generic. I think it's because the using statement here above the namespace qualifies stuff within the namespace. So then when you're within the namespace, like it just like okay, it would be the same as being like it'd probably be the same as this, right? You have um, a class outside the namespace.
Gambler says yes. Type alias for opaque types are a decent solution in Scala for having business good worded types, but are often primitives behind the back. Is Scala still a popular language? I don't really hear people evangelizing it. I know they had a major uh, version update, Scala 3.0, aka Dotty. I don't hear that much about Scala. No, you forgot to use. Never mind. I take that back.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why this works. Like it knows that this is INU here. outside of the namespace. So now we're in the root namespace. So it's or no, wait, no. Okay, let me look at this again. So this one wouldn't work up here because we don't know at this point in time. We don't know what an enumerable is, even though it's used here. But it's at the same it's at the same level maybe. Like if you think about it, it's not nested one layer deep. So the context isn't clear. The using's context isn't clear. Whereas down here it is.
You need
But I
to
don't
learn.
understand is why when well no, I guess when I put this in here I'm one nested layer deep too. I'm in within the class. So this works.
You should learn Haskell.
But I wonder if oh, it
I like that
works too.
autopilot.
I don't really know why this works, but anyways, that's a trick for you that I learned now. You can you can do this, alias it within the namespace, and then you won't have to do the fully qualified stuff.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't either until like I randomly came across.
Oh, where did you go? Something happened to Sean. I didn't do it. There you go.
Meant
Yeah,
to stop sharing, and I accidentally exited instead.
Gambler says, I think Kotlin is a better option for many people looking for a better Java. So Scala lost a huge intake of developer. Plus, Scala is still somewhat a researchy language, as in, it's happy to make breaking changes, not something a company would like. Yeah, I had liked I forgot the name of the language. It was a very different paradigm. I can't remember it. I got the book in my closet. Uh, it was a functional language where the compiler would tell you like what you needed to fill in. Think I can't remember it. I'll type it later. It's a research language that's like been around probably for like the last like 10 years.
Scratch. No, I'm just kidding.
Idris, thank you. I don't know how you guessed that. Yeah, I was like, I like Idris, but it's the same thing. Like, I don't think it's ever going to be like production grade, but it's a very cool paradigm. Idris, I don't know how you guessed that, Gambler. You're smart. Well, I'll tell you, those people from hold up, Switzerland, right? I keep confusing Sweden and Switzerland. Which one is he? Where is he from? It's from
Switzerland.
Switzerland. Switzerland,
Switzerland.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those Scandinavians, I'll tell you.
I
Hold on,
don't
is that
think
considered Scandinavia?
I don't think Switzerland's good. Scandinavia is Sweden, Norway, and maybe Finland and Denmark. Well, Finland and Denmark are more on the edges, but like the core of Scandinavia is Norway, Sweden. But I think Denmark falls into that as well. And I want to say that Finland does, but it's that whole north region, whatever,
That's where all the strongmen champions come from.
versus like Scandinavia versus. Well, I guess those are all Germanic areas, but
The strongman champions come from Scandinavia. The marathon runners champions they come from Kenya. Uh, this is interesting.
yeah,
What age do you plan on retiring? How many years left do you have in this career?
me
Yeah,
in software.
yeah.
I don't know.
I still want to be a interrogator.
I don't think I'm ever going to retire fully. I just don't think that it's going to happen. I'll either get cancer and die or something beforehand, or I'll get hit by a car. I mean, I'm not Like I'm not just ignoring 401ks and all that crap, but it's like I just don't think it's going to be like I think all that crap is just advertising to get you to put money into stuff. I don't think it's going to actually come to fruition for most people. But anyways, I don't know. I always think like every so often I'm like I don't want to do software development after this job. I want to do something serious. Like
I think a
last
lot of people say
job
that.
before it's like maybe I'm getting too old for this shit. I don't. I'll just let the other people do it and
I don't know.
start my own business.
Ever since I saw the moving Training Day, like I wanted to like serve warrants, or when I saw Menace to Society, I wanted to be an interrogator. Like uh, I either want to serve warrants or be an interrogator. Probably an interrogator. Like I just want to get you. You remember watching the first 48? The first 48 is a television
Nope.
series that's like reality TV where people get murdered and then the hunt is on for the killer because after 48 hours the probability of getting a lead to find the killer dramatically goes down. And
Okay.
so yeah, I think it would be cool to be in like Cleveland or Miami and like just interrogate the hell out of people, man, and like just poke holes in their alibi.
And they're sitting there just going, I plead the fifth.
You
Lawyer,
know, like
lawyer,
cuff them, Danny. Like,
lawyer,
I
lawyer,
don't think most of them were that smart. No,
lawyer.
they're not because you watch it and it's like, and I just start pleading like, don't say anything, just stay quiet. Don't even tell them your name. Don't even don't even say yes when they ask you if you want anything to drink or eat. Like, no, don't say anything. Just put your head down on the desk. Don't say anything, and they always respond to a simple question, and then it starts growing based on rapport being like built up, and then they just expose details that gets used against them.
Yeah, actually, there's two interesting book. I don't know if you've read it. And actually, I haven't even. I don't think I've read it all yet. But you should, if you want to do something, read this one. I guess, Persuasion.
Okay.
Um, in there, he actually is like he talks about camera angles within police interrogations and all of that stuff. And like there, he has this case study in there where police actually convinced someone that they murdered, like, and they were convicted. Like they were didn't murder anyone, but they convinced them that they were guilty. Like they're like, maybe I just blacked it out, kind of a thing. But he also goes into it that depending on the camera angle that's used, your likelihood of being convicted goes way different. So if you have a if you have it from the perspective of the cops looking at the person, your versus you looking at the cops, same answers. Like the chances of like the conviction go up or down based on that. If you have the camera angle where two people are looking side by side at each other like this, there's absolutely no like bias
Bias.
towards one way or the other. Because the camera angle, if you're looking at someone, there's like a better chance you're persuaded to believe that they're guilty. But if you're looking from their perspective at the police, you're more persuaded to think about their position rather than the cop's position. And so like
Yeah, I think it's the same argument for like why during trial the people are wearing suits and they're not wearing their jail uniforms.
yeah, it's because they otherwise they look like they're convicted. They're not they're technically innocent still, right? But yeah, actually that book is interesting. Like there's other things you can use in there. Like one persuasion technique he talks about is, so let's say you're going in and somebody's asking you for your rate, right? And you want to get a high rate on like a sale or something like that. What you should do is anchor their mind to some really high number by being like, hey, what's your rate? You go like, well, it's not. I tell you what, it's not $300 an hour or $500 an hour. Now their mind is anchored on that really expensive $500 mark. So when you come in and say it's 150, that sounds like a much lower, more reasonable number because their mind is already framed up with thinking at that higher number. And so that's the persuasion techniques that salespeople can do. Like your chances of having your number be seen as reasonable could be predicated on the fact that you've anchored their mind at a much higher number. So it's really just
What's the
like
name of the
fast
book?
answer.
It's called Pre. What's it
There's
called?
there's two books that you like if you want to just kind of look at some interesting psychology crap. His first book is called Influence, and then this one's called Persuasion.
Persuasion.
Yeah, Persuasion.
I think it's. I'll try to find the audiobook and run to that.
Yeah, Influence is a oh look, I even have a thing in here. I'm like halfway through. I just haven't finished it yet. Um, Influence is I did read all the way through. There's some really cool stuff in that book. Like they talk about like he explains why like he talks about how uniforms command like influence.
Yeah.
So like if you're in a certain uniform, like it's whatever. There's like they talk about how like people will if they believe that authority is telling them to do something, they will go and kind of suspend like a lot of their moral beliefs and ethics. So like
Rwanda.
they did this experiment where they put people in a room and they'd have them hit this buzzer. And the buzzer would shock someone, like it wasn't actually shocking them. They would pretend like they were shocked, and they would get progressively more. And they ran the test to see how long would it take before somebody who if an authority figure was telling them, hey, you should hit that buzzer again, hit it again, how long it would take before they would just feel completely uncomfortable and just stop. Like by themselves, they would just not want to do it. But if an authority figure was there telling them, they would go all the way up to just shocking the hell out of them.
Yeah, the first parallel I think about is, the police officers that stand by while someone is being abused or having their rights violated, and like
Yeah, but
they,
that's
they
yeah. I don't know if you talked about that, but that's another psychology thing. It's like the diffusal of responsibility. This is why if you're ever drowning and there's a bunch of people on the dock and you can point to someone specific and target them as the person you want to help, you're much more likely to get help. Or in any situation, you're in a fight and you need help, point to someone specific and get them to help. And maybe fights won't do
I
that, but
don't
like
think anybody's going to remember that when they're panicking.
yeah, but that's the thing is like if you're in a crowd, everybody thinks somebody else is going to help. But as soon
Yeah.
as you get pinpointed as you help me, now you have responsibility that was diffused amongst the entire group before.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. What I find interesting lately is all right, so the feminist movement has been like raging, right? And I just think I don't know, I just think it's interesting, right? I'm laughing, but like so I'm starting to see more and more videos of like subways or buses where like women are getting into arguments with guys and then they're like, sticking their finger in their face or like, provoking them, right? And maybe, the guy did something wrong or something. Um, but then like you'll see like the guy slap her or slam her, and then the lady that was like aggressive, at least what they show in the tape, being aggressive, because maybe that doesn't tell the whole story. Like she'll then look around for people on the train or for the bus to do something, and no one does. They just record it. And so I think it's funny because one is it's kind of related to what you were saying about like people just stand by if they're not like pre-selected and like kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? If they're not pointed at in which they have to literally say yes or no if they're going to intervene or not. And then the other part is like men have been bashed so long that I find it interesting that now they're like, you know what? We're not going to participate. We're not going to try to save this person. We're all equal. If we're all equal, this means that this person can save themselves. And so now I'm seeing a lot of videos where like, where are where are the saviors at? And it's like, well, we're in a society where we're all about equality and we can handle ourselves, but then you still look at men to still rescue you when I don't know how to articulate it, but I think it's interesting. It's sometimes funny.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. I mean, gender like roles and stereotypes, like all that stuff. It's kind of like a natural evolution, right? It's that's we all evolved to think a certain way by default. It's why,
So
like, yeah,
it's
yeah,
just it's just interesting how like I think in society like we've reached parity, right? And in Western society at least, like women have the same opportunities now. Um, they have an opportunity to make the same money. It still depends on what job you're seeking, right? But then it's kind of like it's only I feel like it's only when it's convenient to them, right? So like they can cause a scene, act out, and if another dude causes a scene or act out and he gets punched in the face, well, that's his problem. He needs to handle it with whoever punched them. But it kind of breaks down like when it's the other gender, they get punched in the face, and then all of a sudden, everything about equality and being independent and handling their own problems, it kind of goes away, and they still default to a man to do something. And when men don't do anything, they get shamed, right? So I don't know. I've been paying a lot attention to YouTube feeds on gender roles and how things have been changing over time. And also, I don't know if you saw I think I mentioned it before, but the documentary, like, What is a Woman? Have you seen
hmm
that? Yeah.
I've seen clips from it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah. So I just think we live in interesting times right now where we're so confused about our roles in society. And yeah, anyways, you don't want to get canceled.
No, I'm not worried about getting canceled. They can't cancel me if I'm not on anything. No. I suppose you can get someone fired from a job or something like that. That's the I mean the scary part about public discourse is that like you say the wrong thing and even if you don't say the wrong thing but you say it in the wrong like somebody takes it out of context like you can say the wrong thing. I'm sure stuff that we've said here taken out of context like if you argue for a point as a devil's advocate within context like you're just trying to understand the line of questioning and get to some sort of thing like you might not actually believe that you're just trying to like beg the question or get or not beg, like get to the point of the question. You take that out of context and it's like clearly like you could be construed as like this evil person or whatever and oh this person doesn't deserve to have their job, we should be shunned. But I don't know. Yeah.
What's- Yeah. I don't know. I think about religion. I don't know. I think about the scientific method, which sounds like it's the only area where people are encouraged to be devil's advocate.
Well, philosophy is supposed to be that it's question. Philosophy is like is questioning. It's everything. and trying to come to some sort of answer through like reason and logic and stuff like that. But you may or may not ever. But it's really the act of questioning. Um, like why are we here? What are we doing here? In terms of like why are we alive or conscious? That those all philosophical questions.
I had a philosophical question that I'll struggle with for like 5 minutes, and of course I can't. I'm not going to remember what it was. I know it has something to do with physics, and it boggled my mind. Oh yeah. Here we go. And I think I answered it to myself without researching it. All right, and it probably sounds silly, but for 5 minutes I struggled to figure out why is it that how does a blanket keep somebody warm? And I was just dwelling on that for 5 minutes. 'Cause I'm like, it's just a blanket. Like, how does that literally like increase heat? It's not like a flame. It's not like friction. It's an inanimate object that you just have closer to you. I don't understand how that keeps somebody warm. And I was dwelling on that for 5 minutes, like as I was walking.
Yeah. Did,
I,
did
I,
you?
I mean, I came to an answer without researching it, and I think my answer is correct. But but I want
Yeah.
to hear your answer and see if it
It's
matches mine.
it's reflecting your was it what's the term endothermic exothermic heat loss. It's reflecting it back. Yeah, it's insulation. It's your heat is escaping your body and then it's getting trapped in another layer that it has to escape. Right.
That was the conclusion after 5 minutes of really dwelling on it that I captured.
Yeah.
What my thought process was, okay, well, if I don't have a cover and I'm just naked in the universe, then that means that atoms are just they have more space to travel freely. But if I have
Energy.
a cover and I wrap it around me, that that reduces the amount of
They're bouncing.
uh, yeah, that reduces the amount of um, it increases the probability of collisions. And in theory, the more collisions you have, the more friction or energy that gets released. And so if I wrap a blanket around me, it's it's probably increasing the number of collisions with atoms, but also if my body naturally gives off heat and then I have a blanket over it, then in theory that heat is going leaving my body but surrounding my skin because of the cover, and maybe it's the combination of atoms colliding more because of the cover keeping it in place and my body giving off heat, which means that that heat is now like kind of a cloak around my body, and that was the conclusion that I drew. I don't know if the first part's right though. I don't know if atoms bouncing, colliding,
I
providing.
think it's just like yeah, it's they're not the heat's not escaping. It's being kind of like contained in the same way that. But there, like you could get into weird stuff. Is like why if something's your body's 98 degrees internal, right? But if you
Yeah,
eat
that's what I
something
checked.
that's like 98, if it's 98 degrees out, it's hot out, right? It's super hot out. Like it's not normal. It's not equilibrium. It's hot if
Yeah.
it's 98 degrees out. Um, but and then things like you could touch something and it's extremely hot, but when you eat it, it's not that hot. Like you can eat it just fine. Like there's all sorts of weird things like that if you start to get into temperature and just like your mind wraps around like with like why do we experience things like temperature the way we do? Like how did we get to the point where it's comfortable to be in 70-degree weather when we're running at 98 degrees internally all the time? So I don't know.
I thought I was a geek. Okay.
Yeah. I suppose it's maybe like your body can't like in 98-degree weather. It's I don't know if you're just like your body's not can't really escape the heat, like cannot exhaust. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's an explanation for it, but yeah.
I don't know
Anyways,
either. You have any plans for the weekend?
no, not really. Not this weekend. Next weekend, I think I'm camping. I think I think I'm camping, and then the week after that. So no, that's 2 weeks from now. Going to the Boundary Waters September 1st through. So I'll be missing September 2nd for this. So,
What's the
but yeah,
Boundary Waters?
the Boundary Waters.
Boundary Waters? What's that?
Yeah, it's this trip I take. It's a canoe trip that I go on, try to go on every year, and I've been successful. But it's the water between Minnesota and Canada. It's kind of there's a bunch of lakes. It's up if you know where the point of Lake Superior is, like the point where Duluth is, and you head north from there. There's a whole set of lakes that are up there that are like a federal recreational area, and you can only go up there with canoe for the most part, or kayaks or whatever. But most people canoe. Um,
I assume you just rent it or you own one.
rented right now. I'll probably have if I keep doing this, I'm probably gonna end up buying a canoe because at some point I should be able to just drive up there, go and do it for a weekend without any paying anything other than to get there and to buy the permit. But yeah, no, you should come up to Minnesota do that sometime. You can get it can be a really pleasant experience because it also can be a total like
Last time I canoed, I got attacked by a bat inside a cave
oh
in Mexico.
oh well there's bats in Minnesota, but you're not going to get attacked by one.
Uh,
You could get attacked by a bear maybe, but the likelihood of that actually that's funny the like video that that you used to watch would be like if you see a bear, just grab two pans and go like this, bang, 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 and it'll run away. It's like because black bears are very like generally very docile. They're not going to attack you or try to eat you unless like you provoke their young or something like that. Like black
usually
bears are they're
black bears.
dangerous, but they're not grizzly bears, right? So my nephew is like, "Oh, my grandpa says we need to bring bear spray." I'm like, "Don't you don't need to bring bear spray. Like there's it's if they're black bears, they're so scared of humans or skittish that they're not going to come near you. The only chance is if
You're not
you
scared of
like
wolves?
no, no, run lakes and stuff. It's like yeah, technically I suppose a wolf could, but most of the time they're not
No,
hunting us.
it's not a wolf.
Yeah, a
It's a
pack.
pack.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, not really. Um, I don't think there's mountain lions up there. Actually, moose. I
People
don't
never
even
get
believe
attacked
there's
by a
moose.
pack of wolves. That doesn't happen, or are wolves pretty much extinct now?
No, there's wolves are kind of a problem in Minnesota. Like said like wolves need to be on like they're still on the endangered species list or whatever or something like that. But they're like up here in big packs killing cattle and stuff like that.
Mm.
And so like farmers have no recourse to try to prevent them from just taking out a multi-thousand-dollar cow. So it's kind of I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. You'd think that we'd have more wolf attacks in nature up here, but we don't really. You never hear of them, anyways. We don't really hear much of like mountain lions or those kinds of attacks either.
Well, I know those are endangered, but yeah.
Yeah,
So you don't carry any like pistols or anything, or
no,
like hunting knives when you go out into the wilderness?
no, not up there. I mean, it's like it's all like everything's surrounded by lakes and stuff like that. The likelihood of like you could see a bear, you might be around a bear. That's probably the most likely thing. There's just it's too boggy and stuff for wolves to be in there in
I
that
would
region.
I would carry ninja stars with me.
Yeah. Actually, the biggest thing I'd be afraid of is if we like moose population is really dwindled in Minnesota. There's not much, but if you encounter a moose, that'd probably be the scariest thing you'd have to because moose can mess you up and they can
Those
get
things are
through.
huge.
Yeah, and they can get through boggy areas like no problem. So a bull moose, I'd be more scared of a bull moose than a brown or a black bear.
I immediately think of the show Northern Exposure.
Yeah,
You don't
but
remember that show?
but you should come up and go canoeing sometime.
I'll
Yeah.
come up there and do a half marathon, but
Oh yeah, they have they released the days for the 7 mile run?
They didn't have that on the schedule.
Well, they had last year's at the last time I looked at it. What is it? 7 mile bridge run.
It should be, yeah, probably some.
7 mile bridge run. Let's see. Yeah, they still have
It's
the
April
date
2nd.
from
Oh,
that's 2022.
it's it's probably going to be the same time. If April
Yeah,
2nd is a Saturday, then it's probably going to be whatever Saturday, whether that's the third or the first. I don't know. I can't do the math.
yeah. Assuming we're still doing this for a while, I'll commit to doing this before I go turn 40. So
That's cool. I know we're wrapping up. I I gotta listen to some more. What's that? Get Hard guy?
Goggins.
Yeah, because first, very briefly, I was able to go from 2 mile to 3 mile runs, and then I've been doing 2 mile runs for like the past like probably 4 months, man. I have no desire to push through and to continually progress to like 4 mile runs, and so
Yeah,
very
don't.
briefly, did you run into that, or you just are so motivated and you have your itinerary of how you're going to progress as it wasn't really an issue?
I had that at the start, and then I like got sick for a week, and then I just threw it all out the window. No, no, actually, there was one time. So after I did my first half marathon, where I like I was like pissed because I got winded after like a mile or two, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And my legs were hurting. Everything was just like, this is
After a
not
mile and a
right.
half?
Yeah, it was like 2 miles, and I'm just like blown. It's like, what the hell? I got to stop. I was pissed. Like I tried to do 6 miles, and I got to like 5.5. I'm like, I just can't. And you know what I did is I changed my shoes, and that made a world of difference.
Wow.
Like seriously, like I
What
had
were you wearing before? Asics or
no, so
Reeboks?
no, and it's the kind of support they have in them. But you can look this up. But I had Brooks, I think was before. Which they're really nice shoes. They're very comfortable shoes, but they're and they're expensive, but they're for a certain kind of foot that's more even. It's a neutral shoe, I think is what it's called. So I think what I have is so I think the term's prognation. So you have like your foot can be angled like inward or outward or flat or not flat, but like if you're flat footed, you have a over prognation. If you're hyper, if you have a big arch, then you're hyper prognated. And depending on what kind you are, you need different types of shoes to kind of like even your foot out. So when you land, you're landing on your actual like foot rather than on a particular part of it. So when I would land, I would basically I would be landing always like kind of on my right side and stuff, kind of like right in the front of my foot, and I'd get a blister right, where the your big toes here, then there's a
Mm-hmm.
big pad, and then right at the edge of that, I'd always get a blister there on my right foot. I switched my shoes. That blister never happens anymore. It always is the blister I do get though, which isn't as bad as on my heel, and that's because I think what's happening is I'm hitting my heel at the edge, but my front is landing even now on that foot. So I'm not rubbing against the side of my shoe like I was before in the front. So dude, just if you get into miles and you start doing that and you notice like, crap, this isn't comfortable and stuff, it could just be that you need a different pair of shoes and a
I still
proper
got
pair of shoes.
Nike Zip Fly. I don't know what they call. They're
Yeah.
$250 shoes. I bought like 3 years ago, and I still haven't worn them yet because
Yeah.
I was saving those for marathon runs.
Well, you
But
should run them for 50 miles before you do a marathon, anyways. Though, that's the to
I
break the break-in period for a shoe.
I think those shoes. Do you know what I'm referring to?
No.
They're one of the most expensive running shoes that Nike sells, and based on their design, I mean the sales rep at Foot Locker at the store. I don't know if how much they really know about engineering a shoe. They said that they're designed to last like 100 miles. Like just based on just the materials that they used and the reason for the design is specifically for like marathon runs that they usually start breaking down after 100 miles.
That's it.
So
So they make them for like a one and done type thing because most shoes get like 300 miles on them. So it's like
these are the shoes that were breaking records.
okay, so it's like they've got the yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about now. I think I read about them. Like they were thinking about actually like
Banning them.
outlawing them as yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should look at the shoes, your shoes if your knees are hurting and stuff like that,
Oh, my knees kill me. Oh my god.
dude. d- go. Well, I didn't do this, but I did enough research, and I know like when I was younger, I went to the foot doctor, and they said that I had flat feet, which means I have an overprognation. And so I looked up, and even though I wanted to buy this shoe, well, I bought the wrong shoes, and even though I wanted to buy like this particular shoes because I read like, oh, these are good shoes, I went with these Asics Kayano shoes, I think are they called, because they're for a slight overprognation, and it made a world of difference in terms of like the knee and hip pain I was having is now like gone in terms of running. Like I have no problem running now. And I feel like I progressed literally doing less over the last few months, um, more than I did for like running on the treadmill with those shoes for like 3, 4 months and doing a lot more. So I don't know. Shoes, like, I didn't believe that they made much of a difference, but I think now I'm convinced like if it's uncomfortable, it's probably the wrong shoe.
But the I'm sorry I'm dragging this on.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Like when you go, I don't know if eBay is still a thing. You remember eBay? It's a shoe catalog. Anyway, it's like I don't remember any description of a shoe that you get ready to buy, like having, oh, this shoe is for underprognated or over whatever term you use. Like they don't say that.
Or it's pronation, I guess is what it
Oh,
is. But yeah, no, they do if you're buying running shoes though.
okay.
So like if you look for a shoe, if you go to like Asics website for instance, and you look up pronations, they have like they'll list out this is for somebody who's underpronated, overpronated, or a neutral. And so like like I said, and I'm looking at the actual because I said prognation, but it's pronation. So like under pronation is the outside of your heel hits the ground at an increased angle with little or no normal pronation, causing a large transmission of shock through the lower leg. And so what they do is based on how you actually land and how your foot lands, the shoe will compensate for that problem. And the if you don't like fix it like or plan for it, you can get shin splints and ankle strains, or you can get hip issues or knee issues and stuff like that. So
I mean,
so
go
under pronation is high, over pronation is low. So
so basically, like I could just send a photo of my foot to somebody that would know, and then they would diagnose which pronation or whatever it is I have. Because there's no way you're going to know when you're wearing the shoe, because that shoe is going to constrain you to heel strike or to whatever a certain type of way,
yeah,
right?
there's a test you can do. It's actually not a picture. What you do is like and you could see this at maybe like a Dr. Shields or this thing like there like
S-
you could do it as a simple test is to like dip your foot in water and then stand on like a piece of cardboard. And if
Okay.
depending on like the actual like fingerprint or footprint that you leave, you can kind of see whether you're under, over, or like where you might be leaning. Because if you see like your entire footprint down, or like your entire thing, you might be over pronated. But if you're like if you see only like a tiny little wedge on the outside, then you might be under pronated, I think is what it is. But if you see kind of like a normal footprint and it's like there's that middle section looks like within a certain range, you might be just a neutral. Um,
Yeah,
and so like,
mine look like paw prints,
yeah.
but yeah.
But if you go to like, I think Dick's Sporting Goods, I think that they have they can do gait analysis. Or if you probably have like running, you probably have like high like running places in town where you could go and be like, hey, what can you do some analysis here? Tell me what shoe I should buy, and
Okay.
they'll, yeah, they'd probably be able to like do gait analysis and be like, you should, for best whatever, you should use this shoe. And
And of
yeah,
course, because I wear a size 15
yeah,
or or 16 in Nikes,
and they'd be like,
then
oh.
yeah.
All right, I got to run here though because I
Hey,
got.
see ya. Thank you,
Yep.
Sean.
See ya.
Bye. See you, Gamlor. Take care. Adios.